Folks, there are many sellers out there that are handcuffed right now. I'll get into that and then the latest home prices and insights for York Region for week ending May 28th, 2025. There's in all markets, there's a lot of similarities. There's always situations that happen in all markets. But in this current market, there's a situation I'm experiencing more so than any other time in my career. And that's that there's many sellers we're finding that they're handcuffed. They'd be okay doing something, but their circumstance just doesn't allow it. For example, we've been in a situation, several actually, where the seller, we're representing the buyer, or where we've represented the seller also. And we're going back and forth and negotiating an offer, and the seller has to have a certain closing date. Now, oftentimes, there's some flexibility there, but we're seeing it more and more where it has to be a certain date. And the only reason why is because a mortgage or one of the mortgages on the property is due at that time. And if the seller doesn't close at that time and get payment for the home and pay out that mortgage, there's going to be penalties, or there's going to be something, financially severe happening to the seller because of that lender. So we're seeing sellers in more than one occasion just not at all flexible on the closing date. We're seeing also sellers in many situations being very tight on the amount of time we allow conditions. The typical amount of time is 5 business days. You have 5 business days for financing condition, 5 business days for home inspection condition. We've had pressure many times this year on, can you make it shorter? Because the seller needs a firm deal, a firm transaction by a certain date. And if we go the 5 business days, the more traditional type of time that's on a condition, it'll go past the date. The seller needs a firm date. And the reason the seller needs a firm date by that time, it's because they're qualifying or protecting themselves from something else. For example, they need a firm date by a certain time because the pre-construction they bought, the builder needs to see proof that they have financing, and they can't get financing until there's a firm deal on the sale of their home. Or the lenders are basically knocking at the door. They're minutes away from taking over the property or putting that file into legal proceedings, and they need, by a certain date, they need a firm deal. So the sellers they'd like to negotiate, but they can't. They're stuck. This is why I'm saying they're handcuffed. They can't maneuver. And what we're seeing way, way too often this year is the fact that the sellers are not in a position to negotiate at a price even the sellers would accept. They can't afford to. What I mean is, the seller, if they sell at the price that makes sense, if they sell at market price, and the seller is aware of what the market price is, if they were to accept that price, they would be selling the home lower than the amount of money they owe on the property, and the seller is not in a financial position to put money in on closing to be able to close this transaction. That one, the last one, we're seeing quite a bit today. I've been involved in many conversations and many listing appointments where I sit down and I show them the numbers, and this is what your home most likely would sell for. And the sellers straight out say, we can't. We owe more than that on the home. And they just can't. And some sellers will try and go out on the market and hope for a buyer to pay more, but this is not the climate where buyers typically are paying more. This is not the climate. This is not the market where buyers are tripping over themselves to overpay. That's gone. We're in a new market. We have been for a while now, and buyers are looking to come down in price. And some sellers are just stuck. We're seeing that more than any other time. These are my observations of what I'm experiencing as a realtor in the field across the GTA today. If you've experienced some of these things, let me know in the comment below. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. And if you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Below this video, in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Or you can go directly to tsre.ca. It'll take you straight to my calendar. Book a date and time that suits you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. Now, let's get into the numbers. Folks, we have this really cool modern log cabin for sale. It's the other side of Lake Simcoe. Check out the link on the screen at the end of this video. Here we go. We're focused on York region, specifically detached properties for Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham. Excuse me. These are average sold prices for 3 months. If you look at all three of those cities, Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham, since I guess the beginning of April, prices in all three cities have been going down. It's, well, a little bit all over the place. So let's get started here with Vaughan. Again, detached properties only. For week ending May 28th, 36 detached properties were sold. 6 of those were at $2 million or more. Sales overall, I would say, are trending up, but it's not apparently, if you kind of just look at short little segments, because sales go down, up, down. But overall, I would say indirectly, they're trending upwards. Average sold price for week ending May 28th is $1,608,000. 1,608 is 12% lower year over year. The median price of 1,460 is also 12% lower than where it was last year. And here, when we're looking at the dotted line, the 4-week moving average, both for average price and median price since the beginning of the March, average price and median price were trending up. Now, since the end of April, kind of looks like they're going the other way, prices. 36 were sold. 8 of those, 22%, sold at list price or more. Lots of listings. Look at this, 120, 111 for the current week ending of May 28th, 114 new detached properties were listed. I'm just going to go back for a second. The last 3 weeks, we've sold 26, 27, and 36. But new listings, 120, 111, 114. There's a big imbalance there. Active listings is climbing. We're now at 643 available detached properties for sale. That's just for Vaughan. And months of inventory, it's down a bit. It's because sales jumped up, down to 4.1 months of inventory, basically right in the middle of what we would consider a balanced market. Richmond Hill, only 10 in all of Richmond Hill. Only 10 detached properties were sold. 2 of those were at $2 million or more. Average sold price is $1,783,000. Now, these numbers overall, these sales numbers, they're so low, it really skews average prices. Let's see what we have here, though. $1,783,000 is 7% lower than where we were this time a year ago. The median price of $1,637 is 12% lower year over year. 10 were sold, 2 of those, so I could say 20%. Wow, 20% is actually sounding not too bad. But it's basically 2 detached properties sold at list price or more. 83 were listed. Active listings is climbing, and months of inventory way up there at 13.3 months of inventory. Here's Markham. Markham seems to be more of the area that's, I guess, more steady and more predictive of what's happening out there, except for this week. May 28th, 34 detached properties were sold. I have a whole year on the board here. 34 is the most amount of sales of detached properties in 1 week that we've seen in at least a year. So 34 were sold. 6 of those were at $2 million or more. Average sold price up a bit from the previous week. We're now at $1,658,000. 1658 is 1% lower year over year. If we look back a little bit though, we're 13% lower, 8% lower, 8% lower, 18, 15, 10% lower. 1% lower is the closest we've been to the average price last year than we've been in a long, long time. The median price of $1,545,000 is also 1% lower. The dotted line, the 4-week moving average, kind of shows me that average price and median price have been trending down over the previous 3 months. 34 were sold. 12 of those, so 35%, sold at list price or more. 77 were listed. Active listings, although this 1 week we're in now, active listings is a little lower from the previous week. Overall, active listings has been climbing, and months of inventory down a bit. We're now at 3.3 months of inventory. Here's a summary of months of inventory. Condos for York Regions is sitting at 10.7. It's there just for reference only. The condo market is a whole different animal. That's a whole different show. But the freehold market, the detached freehold market, 4.1, 13.3, 3.3. In most cases, you're going to experience a balanced market out there. Some pockets, some neighborhoods, you're going to experience more of a buyer's market. There's just a lot of extra property sitting out there. People got to sell. If they're on the market, they're usually not there for fun. They want to sell. And the harder it gets, the more the transaction leans into the buyer's favor. Now, check out this awesome modern log cabin. The link will be on the screen. Have an awesome day.